welcome to my thoughts of the new Gran Turismo Sport penalty system. If y'all watched my live stream, y'all were probably able to figure out my initial thoughts of the penalty system. And, well, my thoughts in general were pretty negative. Luckily, I didn't have a mic during that live stream because, well, I'll just say because I posted it on GT Planet, I probably would have got banned if I happened to have a mic during that live stream. Luckily, I didn't, so that worked out, kind of. But the penalty system in general doesn't work out very well. I did do some races off stream because I really didn't want to have y'all put up with the terribleness of the penalty system. Y'all didn't need to see that anymore. And oddly enough, the races I did off stream were actually the ones that went better in general, usually. There's some negatives to them, but in general, they actually went pretty smoothly, and some of the races were actually get specialtated. Which is a minor side note, too. It's actually the amount of time that I'll have to record videos is going to be less coming up, because, well, for one, I'm going to a NASCAR race Saturday, so that'll be some stuff. And then, two, college is starting back, and then I'll record what I can, but I do have a whole heck of a heap of clips as well, so don't necessarily... The amount of videos won't be less, I don't think, but the amount of recorded videos maybe. Anyway, back to the main point. I wanted to say that now while people were still tuned in. But trust me, stay tuned in, because this bit's gonna get juicy. I don't really think the penalty system is all that bad. When it works properly. It rarely works properly. It seems like when everything goes as it should, or how it seems to be made to, yes, in general, the racing is dirtier, but that just means people are trying harder and actually attempting to race each other. They're not downright racing dirty as much as just racing more competitively, usually. And that's not a bad thing. Granted, there were some races where I got downright punted and the person didn't get a penalty, or I was dirty as well, and I didn't get a penalty. I'll admit that, too, and that'll be somewhat in special takings, but even though 10% of the time people race downright dirty and they don't get a penalty for it, 90% of the time it's just they race a bit more aggressive, and therefore it makes the racing overall more fun. But that's of about the 50% of the total amount of time that the penalty system works correctly. Like, here's this, folks. I would consider this aggressive racing, but I don't think any one particular driver was racing dirty here. Just everybody was racing aggressive on the final lap to get the win. Makes sense. Whatever that is doesn't make sense, but that's not the point. I don't know what that is. That was picked up in the live stream and the direct footage, and I noticed that while I was in the middle of the race. It's really only like a frame or two, but I don't know, folks. I don't know. But I do know this. Here's this. So it's getting down to the last turn or two of the race. It's the main straight, like the fastest bit of the track. The driver who I'll admit I got in front of, I did that somewhat to gain speed, but mostly because I don't think anybody going lower than I am now was gonna make it work. I didn't really think I was gonna make it work at the current position I was in. I was hoping in general everybody was going to move up, because eventually this bit of pavement's going to run out. Not yet, so I'm fine. But whatever, no big deal for now. Just stay full throttle. I got a little bit of a bump from the driver who I got in front of, because I really didn't want that driver getting to my inside when I'm already this inside. Take that as you may, but nonetheless it was allowed, and it didn't really hurt the other driver that much, especially for what's coming up. Kinda helped that driver in hindsight, but it ain't hindsight time yet. This is still before the craziness happens, and it's already getting a little bit crazy. Because, well, I didn't have room to get up top yet, so I'm literally driving in the grass here. No penalty, though, so it's still not that big of a deal yet. I don't mind driving in the grass as long as it ain't a penalty. But physics ball happens. I start losing control, and then I get on to the part without banking, so I downright spin out. Is that realistic? These are slow cars that have been full throttle for a long time. So I'd think if there would have been a spin out, it would have been before this point. So I really don't know. What caused the spin out here when all the craziness happened like here? Didn't? I don't know. But nonetheless, I wound this back a little bit for a reason so y'all could see it in motion. I got hit a few times beforehand, but none of that was a penalty. I'll just say that right now. None of that was a penalty. The ghosting system worked fairly well. I did get spun out, but that was just from aggressive racing. Once I was literally spinning, nobody hit me. During the actual racing bit, when everybody was still on track going relative at speed, it let us race, and nobody got penalties for it. That's pretty good. That's how it should work. Why I spun out in general, I don't really know, but that's not really what I'm mad about. Coming up here is what I'm mad about. Y'all saw this on stream, and, well, that's double proof. Video proof here, because I saved this clip, and it's on stream. I got a penalty for quite literally nothing. In fact, even a negative. I got spun out, and I got a penalty for it. I'm not having that. That's just downright stupid. That's just downright game breaking. I can't fathom what would have caused a penalty in that situation. The only reason I think I could have got a penalty in a situation in which I spun out is if I was the instigator. Like I swerved in front of somebody and got spun out, or sweeved, to make it sound like I'm actually doing a video of my own here. And I say that sort of kind of too, because I am not the only one having these problems, and I'll put that in a future bit. But anyway, yeah, now I have a penalty. It's the end of the race, and I was already going to be last anyway, and the penalty makes it that much worse. Insult to injury to the absolute max there. Yeah, I'm not having that. And as of now, I will say this, looking a little bit forward, but just put this now in general, because I'm thinking about it. I'm not bringing back my main account yet. Maybe PD will put a hot fix in to fix some of the stupidity like this, because in general, the penalty system works well now, but there are some parts that downright kill it. If those parts aren't happening, it's actually pretty good, but this is yet another part that kills it. And this brings into, there's other people who've already complained about the same issue in a very little bit of time the system has been out. Apparently this coming up happened to NASCAR Fan 1400, who has a YouTube channel. If y'all watch this, y'all probably watched him at some point. I guess I can link his channel in the description as well too, so if you haven't, check out his channel, no doubt about that. But apparently that wasn't actually when he was filming or recording when it happened, but he said it happened during the live stream, and I believe him, because, well, here's proof of it happening to me. I'm just bump drafting, just simple bump drafting, like in the middle of a straight. Nobody else is around this. I see nothing wrong with this tactic. In fact, I was doing it for a while. I mean, look at the laps, folks. It's already lap 2. There's no penalty yet, and I bump drafted enough to get us top 2 running away pretty well. Nothing bad has happened yet. 10-second penalty. Not a 1-second penalty. Not a SR down. Only a no penalty. It's both. It's SR down and a 10-second penalty. This is not the type of stuff to get people back playing your game, PD. It's not. I understand you're doing stuff that the community says to do. The community said to fix the penalty system. You spent a lot of time to implement a fix. I'm just going to say that's them working hard to get it out and stuff. But the work is not showing right now. Bugs like this are not acceptable. And I would hope, for Jiminy Cricket's sake, this is a bug in the first place. If this is how the system actually works, I might not even race too much on the alternate account. I might start a boycott in general. I'm not one to do something like that, because then that means you're not playing a game that you paid money for. But this is borderline get to the point of it needs a boycott if this is on purpose. If it's just a bug and it's fixed, I'm not even going to say whatever. It's still a negative, but that's not the worst situation it could be. But there is a chance it could be worse, and I'm not having that in the slightest. The first one, I got spun out. That's like a thing that happens out of the norm. And I got a penalty, which is still unacceptable. But this is this random thing that happens like everyone does in this type of racing. And I've been doing it for a while before this, and then I just randomly get a penalty this time around bump drafting, doing nothing different than I have been before, and it's a 10-second penalty. Basically, my race was ruined at this point. Y'all saw this on the live stream as well. I finished like 5th or 6th or something. When even at lap 2, we already had a 2-car breakaway. I just can't deal with that. If it's fixed, still not great, but acceptable. I'll say that. It's acceptable if it's fixed. But I don't have that much hope that it's going to be fixed, or at least not anytime soon. Because something that more than just me have complained about as well is the hitting walls and it blatantly slows you down is a penalty. Exactly the same here. This is a short clip. I'm not going to spend that much time on it because it speaks for itself. I get slowed down here. I still get a penalty. I've explained that in many a Pediologic and Rant video in the past, and so has a lot of other people. They still haven't fixed it. That's still a thing, which makes me worrisome of the last thing that I sold. And this ain't even the last thing I'm gonna sew. The general clip is the positive of the penalty system. I'll attempt to end on a positive, but this clip in general, the whole overlaying thing ends up being a negative, even though it looks more of a positive. Y'all will see what I mean in a minute. I'll say this for now. Starting off, this is the positive of the penalty system. I wouldn't say it was the most accurate of racing, but I don't think either of us was being all that dirty. We were pushing hard on the last lap. We had a decent enough breakaway from the other drivers, where unless we downright wrecked, it was going to be us in the top 2, so we could battle pretty much however we wanted. Obviously, you don't want to downright wreck each other, but I mean, here's the clip, folks. I mean, I don't think either of us were trying to wreck each other. I wasn't. The only time I'm going to wreck people is if someone initiates it. If they try to wreck me, I'll try to wreck them. But this driver was clean. And stays clean for the most part. There's a very minor tap there that honestly is pretty unavoidable. This I go to the bottom here. That driver wants to go to the bottom here. And this minor tap. No penalty there. That driver already had a penalty to begin with, but no penalty was given to either of us at that point either. But a little bit longer, there's a little bit more contact. The first one was downright avoidable. The second one is a little bit iffy on the lead driver's part. He's pretty much just drove into it. But I completely understand. It's the last lap, and in real life NASCAR, they block on the last lap to try to stay in front of somebody. I can't blame them. That's like happens in the real world, so yeah, I got drove into, but nobody got a penalty there. And I was still actually able to carry enough momentum to win the race. I didn't have as much momentum as I did before, but either way, I still won the race, so nobody's fault there. They were still all around clean, and that would have been a move that was done in the real world. So that's pretty realistic, and the penalty system allowed it to happen. The penalty that driver had beforehand apparently happened earlier in the race. So, I mean, that's still kind of annoying for that driver, because they still have to slow down to lead a penalty when they tried to make a move to win the race. It just didn't work. But I still give credit to that driver for at least attempting to make the move. It made it an entertaining finish. And it went all around well. So, that driver served a penalty or whatever, but I'm still pretty sure we're locked into 1-2. But apparently that driver didn't serve the penalty. I'd still say that driver deserves second, though. Hopefully it's not a big enough penalty for it to matter. It's not a penalty at all. Like I said, in general, that clip looked pretty cotton picking positive. Realistic racing, aggressive but not dirty, was allowed to happen. But then just the overlaying thing is still kind of coming out as a negative. Why did it show that driver having a penalty, but then apparently they didn't? That's game breaking. That's a glitch that actually happened in the past as well that they didn't fix. And now it actually seems a little bit more common, which I'll put that into its own video. I'm going to do special takings of some of these races when I get a chance to. As I said, I don't know when that chance will be exactly, but I'll try to get around to it at some point. But for now, this is this, and this can't happen. This race, it went well, and didn't affect either of us, but they need to, at the very least, get the showing of who has a penalty correct. Before you even attempt to correct this penalty system, you should at least show who has the penalties correct. This is the basic of the basic stuff. It's not even the system itself, it's the sewing of the results of the system. If you can't get this right, I have no hope of them getting any of this stuff fixed. They haven't fixed this. The very simplest of things. That doesn't give me much hope. At all. And obviously, that's still a penalty crossing the line. Even after that driver finished, it's still blinking a penalty. There's no denying that. That driver's showing to have a penalty. Until the end screen. This race, it didn't matter. But if that happens in a race that matters, then I think that deserves a boycott. I'll give a little bit of a chance in my alternate account. I'll give them a little bit of time to fix it, but I mean, this is not acceptable. None of this in general is acceptable, but especially not this. This is... It's one thing to just mess up in your algorithm doing a penalty system. It's another thing when you can't even solve the algorithm existing correctly. No. But yes, in terms of like this part is good. Continue this, PD. This is good. This does not need fixed. This is realistic racing. Blocking happens in stuff like NASCAR. That driver tried to block and failed. Didn't hurt anybody. We still got a 1-2. It's just aftermath of this that should never happen. This is a step in the right direction, but there's a lot of steps in the wrong direction as well that have been taken. Maybe those steps can be fixed. I can only hope, but given that there's stuff that I've already shown that hasn't been fixed yet, I don't have that much hope. Isn't worth a yeehaw. All in all, I'm still going to say no for now, but some individual races in which stupidness doesn't happen, those may be worth a yeehaw, but is it worth a yeehaw as a whole? No, it's not. But there'll be some individual races in the future that hopefully y'all can enjoy, because they were at least enjoyable for me as well, even though a lot of the other stuff is still not exactly enjoyable. So, well, that's that, folks. There's really not that much way to end this. Yeah. Hopefully PD can make a way to end this good. Hopefully. Maybe. Probably not.